हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम टू माय यूट्यूब चैनल द सोलफुल डायरी। आज के वीडियो में हम बात करेंगे फिलिप लार्किन और उनकी पोम नेक्स्ट प्लेस के बारे में। पोम या पोएट के बारे में डिस्कस करने से पहले जान लेते हैं टाइटल की मीनिंग, नेक्स्ट प्लेस की मीनिंग। द टाइटल नेक्स्ट प्लेस effectively summarizes the sense of urgency the people feel within the poem. Larkin categorizes the characters of the poem, indeed, we as impatiently waiting for the future to arrive. The use of the imperative next suggests a tone of impatience, with the title demanding the arrival of the future, similar to how the people within the poem are also eagerly waiting. In this poem, next symbolizes the future, with the demand for its arrival suggesting a dangerous disregard of the present. At the core, this poem is Larkin pointing out the stupidity of asking for the future instead of enjoying the present. While the future does indeed draw closer, so does the inevitability of death. ये पोम को डिस्कस करने से पहले जान लेते हैं फिलिप लार्किन के बारे में। Philip Larkin was born in Coventry, England in 1922. He earned his BA from St. John's College, Oxford, where he befriended novelist and poet Kingsley Amis uh, and finished with first-class honors in English. After graduating, Larkin understood professional studies to become a librarian. He worked in libraries his entire life, first in Shropshire and Leicester, and then at Queen's College in Belfast, and finally as librarian at the University of Hull. In addition to collections of poetry, Larkin published two novels, Jill and A Girl in Winter, as well as criticism essays and review of jazz music. The latter were collected in two volumes, All What Jazz, a record diary, and required writing miscellaneous pieces. He was one of the post-war England's most famous poets and was commonly referred to as England's other poet laureate until his death in 1985. Indeed, when the position of laureate became vacant in 1984, many poets and critics favored Larkin's appointment, but Larkin preferred to avoid the limelight. Larkin achieved acclaim on the strength of an extremely small body of work, just over 100 pages of poetry in four slender volumes that appeared at almost decade-long intervals. These collections, especially the less deceived, the Whitsun Weddings, and High Windows, present a poetry from which even people who distrust poetry, most people can take comfort and delight. According to X.J. Kennedy, in the New Criterion, Larkin employed the traditional tools of poetry, rhyme, stanza, and meter to explore the often uncomfortable or terrifying experiences thrust upon common people in the modern age. As Alan Brownjohn noted in Philip Larkin, the poet reduced without fanfare the most technically brilliant and resonantly beautiful, profoundly disturbing yet appealing and approachable body of verse of any English poet in the last 25 years. Despite his wide popularity, Larkin shied from publicity, rarely consented to interviews or readings, cultivated his image as a right-wing curmudgeon, and grew depressed at his fame. According to J.D. McClatchy in the New York Times Book Review, Phoenix contributor Ellen R. Jones suggests that as librarian at the remote University of Hull, Larkin avoided the metropolitan, the group label, and embraced the non-literary, the provincial, and the purely personal. From his base in Hull, Larkin composed poetry that both reflected the dreariness of post-war provincial England and voiced the spiritual despair of the modern age. McClatchy notes Larkin wrote in clipped, lucid stanzas about the failures and remorse of age, about stunted lives and spoiled desires. Critics feel that this localization of focus and the colloquial language used to describe settings and emotions and Dear Larkin to his readers, agenda reviewer George Decker noted that no living poet can equal Larkin on his own ground of the familiar English lyric, drastically and poignantly limited in its sense of any life beyond, before or after life today in England. Throughout his life in England, was Larkin's emotional territory to an eccentric degree. The poet distrusted travel abroad and professed ignorance of foreign literature, including most modern American poetry. He also tried to avoid the cliches of his own culture, such as tendency to read portent into an artist's childhood. In his poetry and essays, Larkin remembered his early years as unspent and boring as he grew up, the son of a city treasurer in Coventry. Poor eyesight and stuttering plagued Larkin as a youth. He retreated into solitude, read widely, and began to write poetry as a nightly routine. In 1940, he enrolled at Oxford, beginning a vital stage in his personal and literary development. According to Bruce K. Martin, in the Dictionary of Literary Biography at Oxford, Larkin studied English literature and cultivated the friendship of those who shared his special interests, included Kingsley Amis and John Wayne. He graduated with first class honors in 1943, and having account for himself with the wartime Ministry of Labour, he took a position as librarian in the small Shropshire town of Wellington. While there he wrote both of his novels as well as The North Ship, his first volume of poetry. After working at several other and university libraries, Larkin moved to Hull in 1955 and began a 30-year association with the library at the University of Hull. He is still admired for his expansion and modernization of that facility. Larkin selected letters edited by his longtime friend poet Anthony Twit reveals much about the writer's personal and professional life between 1940 and 1985. Washington Post book world reviewer John Simon noted that the letters are about intimacy, conviviality, and getting things off one's heaving chest into a headful ear. He suggests that these cheerful, despairing, frolicsome, often foul-mouthed, grouchy, self-assertive, and self-deprecating missives should not be missed by anyone who appreciates Larkin's verse. He died on 2nd December 1985. पोम को इन डेप्थ डिस्कस करने से पहले जान लेते हैं उसके कुछ की फीचर्स इन क्लासिक फिलिप लार्किन स्टाइल. Next Place is a bleak reflection on life. It explores death and asks the reader to focus on the present while they can. This poem is about the inevitability of death. He argues that people spend too long fixated on the future, forgetting to live in the present. In Next Place, he looks at people who have wasted their present, waiting for a future that never comes. In an incredibly depressing poem, Larkin implores the reader to focus on the present before it's too late. पोम को चलिए अब इन डेप्थ डिस्कस करते हैं. Stanza 1. Always too eager for the future. We pick up bad habits of expectancy. Something is always approaching every day till then we say. A tone of impatience first suggested within the title is instantly communicated through the word eager within the first line. This tone of impatience is continued throughout. Next, please, characterizing the poem. Within the first line, Larkin uses the pronoun we to group the reader within those about which he is talking. Larkin believes that all people, the reader included, have this obsession with what the future will bring. We can see that he frowns on this habit of expectancy through the preceding adjective bad. This poem acts as a warning. He wants the reader to focus on the present instead of the future. The ever nearing future is Larkin's key focus in Next Place. The always approaching future draws nearer every day. Yet, We are impatient of the slow daily progress. The use of enjambment every day till then suggests closeness between the present and future, yet the line break actually serves to drive apart from the two concepts. Still on a new line is emphasized. The far off impossibility of the future is described through the ambiguous word. Thus within this line, till then we say that a glimpse of Larkin's depressing view is revealed. Larkin suggests that the future is not close at all. Time waiting for its arrival is time waste. Stanza 2. Watching from a bluff the tiny, clear, sparkling armada of promises draw near. How slow they are, and how much time they waste refusing to make haste. In this stanza, the concept of Larkin's extended metaphor begins to take shape. The sparkling armada of boats is an idealization of the future, with the ships representing possible futures. Larkin still talks through the perspective of we, and the reader is drawn into the fascination of the beautiful future. Indeed, the imagery of sparkling and the grandeur or armada elevate the beauty of these future promises. Romanticizing the future, the impatience of we is again shown in this paragraph, with the two exclamations reflecting the eagerness. The poet creates a certain divide between we and them within the stanza. We, those who passively wait for the future, and the future actively drawing nearer. This seeming reversal with the future being the thing moving towards us allows us we to take on a passive role. We believe that it is not our duty to chase down the future, expecting and waiting for it to arrive. This is the core of Larkin's argument, and where he finds frustration. How slow they are, how much time they waste is a picture of humanity denying that it is actually us wasting our own time. Instead of taking responsibility, we blame something else, taking a back seat in our own lives. Stanza 3 and 4. Yet still they leave us holding red stalks of disappointment, for though nothing bugs. Each big approach leaning with brass work prinked, each rope distinct, flagged, and a figurehead with golden tits. Arcing our way, it never anchors. It's no sooner present that it turns to past, right to the last. These two stanzas hold the majority of the romanticization of the future. Yet it is also here that Larkin describes the harsh reality and the punctures this idealization. Larkin paints a beautiful picture of the nearing ship representing the glorious future. Golden tits suggest wealth, but is also sexualization of the future, romanticized right up until the end of its approach. Yet the ship never docks. The future never arrives as wanted. Although the future arcs towards we, it never anchors, the disappointment palpable. Larkin uses negative semantics, wretched disappointment never, to describe the bitter realization of we, that what they have been waiting for has eluded them. We have realized all too late that the present has turned to the past. Larkin suggests that time slips through your fingers if you are constantly fixated on the future. The romanticization of the unknown future is toxic as it draws focus away from the present. Stanza 5. We think each one will heave to and unload all good into our lives, all we are owed for waiting so devoutly and so long, but we are wrong. This paragraph is introspective again, relying on the we. He talks about how we expect the future to arrive and bring us what we desire. But this is not the case. We are wrong. The grammatical isolation of this line, but we are wrong, is a moment of clarity within next place. whereas we are those who romanticize the future. This is a flash of reality, preceded by an end stop and coming at the end of the stanza. This line is given a solemn emphasis. The short, monosyllabic sentence is cripplingly depressing after the beautiful imagery of the last few paragraphs. The double use of so devoutly, so long summarizes the problem in focusing on the future. The we in the poem spend so much time idealizing the future they forget to think about the present, a whole lifetime wasted by waiting and waiting for something that never came. Stanza 6. Only one ship is seeking us, a black sailed, unfamiliar, towing at her back a huge and birdless silence. In her wake, no water breathe or break. After the somber tone of stanza 5, this stanza reflects the harsh reality of life, the inevitability of death. Bleak, right? At this point in the poem, the illusion of the future has been shattered. Instead, the extended metaphor of ship is subverted into one describing death. While we have been waiting for the sparkling armada of the future, the only thing that has been getting closer is one ship, the black sailed figure of death. The stanza is bitterly depressing. The sheer still force of death is characterized by a huge and birdless silence. Larkin employs a daunting and terribly quiet image of death, drawing nearer and nearer. The final line compounds this horrible stillness. With the lack of movement, no waters breathe or break, attributing to the complete nothingness of death. Death arrives where the future did not. In conclusion, the romanticization of the future is a dangerous game. Larkin urges the reader to break out of the we, to grip the present and not let go. Depressing or enlightening? Not so sure. Poetic devices. In Next Please, Philip Larkin uses several poetic devices to convey themes of futility and the disappointment of unfulfilled expectations. The poem employs a conceit and extended metaphor of an armada of ships symbolizing hopes and expectations, along with imagery to depict the slow progress and eventual disappearance of these ships, representing dashed hopes. Irony is also used, highlighting the contrast between the constant pursuit of what is next and the inevitable arrival of death. Conceit. The central conceit of Next Place is the comparison of life and its expectations to an approaching armada of ships. The ships represent hopes, promises, and anticipated rewards. The extended metaphor provides the structure of the poem, showing how people build up expectations and wait for these ships to arrive. Imagery. Larkin employs vivid imagery to depict the ship themselves, emphasizing their slow approach and eventual disappearance. For example, the sparkling armada becomes leaden, flagged, and eventually unfamiliar, reflecting the decline of hope and the disappointment that follows. The huge and birdless silence at the end symbolizes the finality of death and the end of all expectations. Irony. The poem utilizes irony by highlighting the contrast between the eager anticipation of what's next and the reality of an endless cycle of disappointment. People wait for ships that never dock, but the only ship that will ever come to anchor is the ship of death, which brings an end to everything. Enjambment and end stop lines. The poem utilizes both enjambment, run on lines, and end stop lines. Enjambment suggests the distant nature of the future and the wasted time spent waiting for it, while end stop lines creates a sense of finality and punctuation for key moments, like the arrival of death. Rhyme and rhythm. The poem follows a consistent rhyme scheme AABB and a relatively regular rhythm, contributing to the sense of relentless anticipation and the cyclical nature of disappointment. Allusion. The final ship, death may allude to the medieval ship of fools or D.H. Lawrence's poem The Ship of Death, further emphasizing the theme of inevitable oblivion. Tone. The poem's overall tone is one of regret and resignation, reflecting a disillusionment with the pursuit of happiness and the inevitability of disappointment. Themes. Next, Please by Philip Larkin primarily explores the themes of unfulfilled expectations, the futility of hope, and the inevitability of death. The poem criticizes humanity's tendency to focus on the future, leading to disappointment when the anticipated good doesn't materialize. It uses the imagery of ships to represent both hope and ultimate certainty of death, and fulfills expectations. The poem uses the metaphor of sparkling armada of promises approaching on the horizon to represent humanity's hope and expectations for the future. However, these ships, like the future itself, never deliver on their promises, leaving only disappointment, futility of hope. The speaker repeatedly emphasizes that these anticipated goods are never truly received, highlighting the futility of building lives around future promises. The poem suggests that people should appreciate the present rather than constantly yearning for a better future. The inevitability of death. The poem contrasts the hopeful ships with a black sailed ship of death, which is the only certainty. This ship is depicted as unfamiliar, towing a silence and leaving no waters to breathe or break, suggesting a void and nothingness after death. Human nature. The poem explores the human tendency to focus on the future, neglecting the present moment and creating a false sense of hope that is ultimately unfulfilled. This is exemplified by the line, always too eager for the future, highlighting the speaker's critique of humanity's habit of expectancy. Appreciation of the present. The poem subtly encourages readers to appreciate the present moment rather than fixating on the future. It suggests that while there may be no guarantee of happiness, there is a certain beauty in the present that should be cherished. थैंक यू। आई होप आज की वीडियो आपको पसंद है। कैसी लगी हमें कमेंट करके बताएं और हमें ये भी कमेंट करके बताएं कि आप आने वाले वीडियोस किस टॉपिक पर देखना चाहते हैं। अगर वीडियो अच्छी लगी तो लाइक शेयर एंड सब्सक्राइब टू माय चैनल। मिलते हैं कल एक और इन्फॉर्मेटिव वीडियो के साथ शाम 4 बजे। टिल देन कीप वॉचिंग एंड कीप सपोर्टिंग द सोलफुल डायरी। थैंक यू।